Can you push the door shut?
Yeah.
Now, are you okay with being side on like this?
Yeah, fine. Because I can still see my computer. All good.
Cool. So, the trouble is, I look really dark on there.
It's because of the light. It's coming through the windows.
No, without it, I don't.
What about putting this light on? And then that one.
I thought that light was on.
No.
Oh, I'm really not being a nice person.
We can tell everyone.
Sorry?
We can tell everyone.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
Ah, so you're doing the controls. And I'm just here and I can read the comments. Is that right? Yay.
Just lean across you.
Of course. Thank you. Left and right. This is my right. Ooh.
Come on your head. Can you hear me?
Very well, yes. It's
Okay.
picking up quite a lot of the sound.
Yeah, that's your mic.
Oh, okay.
So,
Can you hear me?
so you talk.
Hello, Stuart. You grumpus.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? We need to. It'd be nice to speak to everyone. These are a bit big for my head. Haha. I besmallened them.
Besmalland. Besmalland.
Besmallened.
Okay. Right. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Have you found the live stream on there?
No. What have I got to do? I don't know these things.
But it just popped up on your screen. There we go.
Ha!
We need to mute this. Have you found the live stream on there?
I think it's going through.
That should not be coming through at all. Of course, there's no sound. Thank you for pointing that out, Rob. So, hello everybody, and welcome to Talk to Stu. We've been having some technical difficulties here this evening, thanks to Vodafone broadband services.
Who are normally very good.
Who are normally
They have been.
They're reasonably good, but I think there's more to do with the fact that we live a million miles from anywhere, and yeah. So, yes, if the screen should suddenly go blank, or if we just disappear altogether, then try and stick with us. Refresh your page, and hopefully we'll pop back a couple of minutes later. So thanks to everyone that has joined us this evening and been supporting the channel in the time that we've been away. Obviously, I've had some health issues which are still ongoing, but we thought, well, we've left it for quite a long time, we should try and come back to you, and so we've come back. That's generally what's been going on. So we are going to do the usual kind of health and well-being chat. I say usual, we've only done it once before, and we had planned and have planned for a while to do a bit of a talk about care and what the different things are to think about if you are either looking to get care for somebody, if you are a carer for somebody, if you know somebody who is receiving care, whether that might be care at home or care in a care home or those kind of things. We might talk a little bit about personal budgets, things like that. Because we have been away for a while, some of you may have joined us this evening with questions about benefits and things like that. So we'll try and answer some of those questions as well, and sort of do a bit of a mix of both things really, if we can. So to start off with, I'll just do a little bit of a talky bit for sort of 5-10 minutes while we get some questions and things coming in. Becky is our moderator this evening, so behave yourselves or she'll kick you out. I'm sure you all will. You're all lovely, lovely people.
You are.
And yes, we've missed you all thoroughly. And so care, all the different types of care. So I've done a couple of videos on care which are available on my channel. So if you go digging around, you can find those. I talked about NHS continuing healthcare, which is a very complicated thing in itself. I've talked about care in the care homes and things like that, but it's a really, really complex system for everybody. The majority of us all end up being carers or have caring responsibilities without really realising that that's what we're doing in the first instance. Generally speaking, if we've got a family member or a friend who we care about, in terms of our feelings and things like that, and they start to get unwell or have difficulties in life and things, we start to provide them with support at home, and it might be something simple to start off with. It might be that you're helping somebody with their bank accounts, or maybe making phone calls for them to, I don't know, it might be that they're finding things difficult, like managing, dealing with, I don't know, Vodafone. We shouldn't say nasty things about Vodafone. It could be any company where you've just got to make a phone call or pay a bill or something like that. So it could be something simple like that, or it might be help around the home. It might be doing something quite simple like cooking them a meal, helping them with the housework, things like that. And then things might involve doing, more sort of things that you might not have expected that you would be doing for that person. So there might be personal care involved, might be helping them in and out of the bath or the shower, might even be actually assisting with washing them, might be helping them with toileting. There's mobility things as well. You know, it might be that you're pushing somebody around in a wheelchair. It might be that you're supporting somebody as they walk, which Becky has to do for me when I mean, even yesterday we just went down the road to see a friend, literally about 10 seconds walk from our front door, and as we were coming back, because we live on a bit of a hill, I needed that support just to get back to the house. So there's all sorts of kind of support that we have where we're essentially caring for somebody, and I think there's a real question around at what point do you become a carer for somebody? Is it that you just do these little odd bits here and there, or is it something where it's more kind of full time? In terms of benefits, if somebody were to apply for carer's allowance, one of the things that they look at is, are you providing that kind of support to somebody for 30 hours a week or more? Now, even though you might be doing that for 30 hours a week or more, the amount of money that is issued with carer's allowance is actually very low. And so the wider view of carers is that they are reducing costs on the public purse by billions of pounds every year, because they're providing care and support that would otherwise have to be provided by professional carers or maybe nurses, not doctors, they don't care in that way. I mean, they care.
They provide care in that way.
They don't provide care in that way. But yes, thank you. Keeping me on the straight and narrow. So yeah, the fact that people are out there providing that kind of support for people makes a huge difference to the economy, essentially, and reduces the cost on the public purse overall. Now, most people who are in a position where they are providing care to people say, well, I'm not a carer, you know, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I'm a parent, you know, it's what I do. But I think, you know, even with children, there are things we all have to do as parents. There's caring responsibilities, you know, clean up your mess, look at your face, look at all that muck in your ears, come in, let me give you a wash, all that sort of stuff. And that's fine, but it's then if you're having to do those extra things. A close family member has a child who is my nephew, who is quite disabled, and they have to do a lot to support him physically speaking, with his, you know, all his daily living needs, and it's very much like caring for a very young child, sort of under the age of 2, but obviously he's getting quite a bit older now, so there's a kind of you know, just because he grows, you know, he is the size of his age, you know, it's very difficult. They're getting to a point now where they're having to think about getting hoists, things like that, installed in the house to enable them to do things like that. So it's something that's unusual. It's not normal for that kind of situation. Obviously, as people get older, then they develop more health conditions and generally might need extra support, and that's sort of expected at that time of life to a certain extent, and indeed most of the care services are kind of geared up around supporting older people. But for children, and certainly for adults of working age, it can be a bit unusual if that kind of support is provided. So what happens if a person needs that kind of care and support, and they've got nobody there to help them, or the people that can help them aren't able to dedicate 30 hours or more a week to supporting them? Well, in that point, a person would need to have professional care And there's two ways of doing that. Either you fund that yourself if you happen to have pots of money lying around. You may not. No judgment there. Or if you don't, then you would have to go through a social care assessment, and they would look at what your daily living needs are and then provide a care plan. They would work out a care plan with you first of all, and then they would provide you with the care that was identified in that care plan as being needed. And that might either be that they have carers coming in regular times throughout the day or throughout the week, possibly throughout the night. It might be that they give you what they call a personal budget, which allows you to kind of go out and get the things that you need for yourself, which might be having carers coming in, or it might be services that help get you out and about. It could be services that provide you with meals, things like that. So those are the two most common ways of doing things. And of course, then there is sort of residential care that people might receive, and that's where a person is either staying in a home or a shared house where there are carers or support workers on staff who will provide support to them all day and throughout the night as well. And then you've got different types of place. So you might have nursing care, for example, if somebody requires a higher level of support than is available through the standard care route. And even with that nursing support, then you've got the possibility of NHS continuing healthcare, which is where people need to have medical interventions as well as nursing support and as well as care support throughout the day. And again, that could be in a nursing home or in a care home or in a residential setting, something like that. So it's a very complicated system. And what complicates it even further is there's no hard and fast rules all across the country. Indeed, most local authorities have quite different rules applied, or that they apply to their care processes, whether that be assessing people, delivering care, all of those kind of things. And they have different budgets as well, so certain things might be available in one area of the country that aren't available in the other area of the country, just simply because of the costs. So it's a very, very complicated system. So there we go. That is my kind of potted overview of care and things like that. So if any of you got any questions or experiences that you want to share, what you've found that could be helpful to other people that are watching this, or maybe you've had to line care up for yourself, maybe doing it for somebody else, maybe you've come across some oddities that you want to discuss, things like that. So yes, are there any questions coming in about that sort of thing, or comments at the moment?
We've had some really good news from Jo, who's a regular listener. Her girl is having double eye surgery, and as we know, she has severe learning difficulties. She's got a developmental age of 18 months. And the local authority has agreed to pay for a night carer because she'll need 24 hours surveillance basically for the first couple of weeks. So that's really excellent news. We're really pleased for you, Jo. Really pleased. Yeah. So that's good.
Okay. So yeah, we'd very much like to know how that pans out and what your sort of experiences of how that goes.
For sure. We have a new person listening, Yvonne, who has watched many of your uploads, Stu. They are 72. She's 72, and she was diagnosed with autism. I am not with it. I'm so sorry.
No, neither of us are.
Diagnosed with autism a few weeks ago. So we're welcoming Yvonne to the group.
Welcome, Yvonne. Glad to have you here.
Yeah.
See, now that would be interesting to know what your experiences are of things as well, Yvonne. Yeah. I've supported a number of people with autism over the years. Some people are perfectly fine, well managed, all on their own, and don't need extra support. And some of them have needed extra support. And particularly if people are classed as high functioning or Asperger's, and I know that is both of those are contentious terms, so if that bothers, I apologise. But there are, I know that some people kind of fall through the gaps if they're at that level where they're not getting, they need extra support, but it might be with like anxiety or going out or support to do something, and they can't get it through the NHS because it's not considered a mental health problem, and it's difficult to get through their local authority, things like that. So
Yvonne has just placed a comment, but I'm going to come to that just a little bit later because I have a couple of questions that are slightly higher up in the list. So I want to do it. I want to do it chronologically. Please forgive me.
Yeah, no, that's good.
But we have a couple of financial questions before I go to the very first comment. Sorry to keep you waiting there, Magical Muppet. But before I do that, I just want to say to Tia, we would need a little bit more information about information regarding savings that aren't savings. It's because you've been sort of trapped at home and you owe it to someone. But I'd be really hesitant about you putting any financial information on here. I'd be a bit concerned about doing that. And I think that Stu will probably agree with me that you'd need to seek some kind of financial advice with that regard, rather than benefits advice. But if you can put something just brief and that isn't too personal on the comments so that we can have a think about that, to think if we can help you with that, then that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But before we do that, Magical Muppet has just got divorced, lost their job and home, gets about £200 or has about £200. Who should they turn to first? They inherited a house that they can't afford to. So I see that you've added a link. Could you just explain a bit about that link?
So
you might just switch the camera back onto you. They don't want to see my face.
It is on me.
Oh, is it? Oh, good.
Yeah, that side's the preview. This side is the. Well, I think it's on me. If people are looking at
it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So right at the top of the chat, I posted a link just at the start, which is the Turn to Us Advice Finder tool. So you can put your postcode and details into that, and it will tell you what advice and support services are available in your local area. Now, obviously, most areas of the country are finding that there is difficulty with obtaining advice and support on a one-to-one basis when it's needed. Most areas sort of rely on the Citizens Advice Bureau, which are generally speaking a bit overstretched. Most of the time the advisors are volunteers. They do have some professional advisors, but many services can be quite reduced, or just on for 2 or 3 hours a week, or part-time sort of things, and getting booked in can mean that there's a bit of a waiting list. And obviously when things happen in life, they always sort of happen all at once, and usually very rapidly, like buses. So not the buses are rapid, but they all turn up at once. Yeah, we all know that. Sorry, I didn't need to explain that. But
unless you're in a film in the early 2000s called Speed.
Yes, exactly, 50 miles an hour. So yeah, hopefully you'll be able to use that and find something local to you that will be able to provide you that kind of support. Also, on the Turn to Us website, if you have a look through it, you will find there's a benefits calculator on there, which will help you to work out what financials you should, or what income you should have coming in, and you can put in all of the details of your finances there. For regular viewers, you'll have heard me say say this many times in the past, but it is a really useful website. The other thing as well is when you are doing a Google search, try and think about what search terms you're using. So disability advice. If you, for example, type in financial advice, then it's probably going to bring up a load of things that you don't want to know. Benefits advice, that might be helpful. But also think about other things as well. So quite often services that you wouldn't think that would be helpful are. So it might be that you know, part of what you're dealing with, like in a situation like Magical Muppet,
Yeah.
is that the name? They're probably feeling quite down and all over the place. I mean, generally speaking, any breakup is very difficult. You go through a grieving process, things like that. So if you start looking into mental health support, those kind of things,
Yeah.
then you can find out other services that are in your area that may not be directly related to your problem. So you might think, well, you know, yeah, I am a bit down and a bit depressed, but actually my issue is the finances and the house that I've been lumbered with that I don't know what to do with. But if you contact local organisations that help with those sorts of things, generally they will signpost you, as they call it, to places, the correct organisations that will be able to help you with those kind of things. And you might get lucky and the person that you speak to on the phone says, yeah, we can help you with that directly. So yeah, that would be, in terms of finding support, that would be my advice there.
I would. So I was in a similar situation. I didn't inherit a house, however, and I found it really important and really useful, and I've still got it all now, is to document absolutely everything that I did. So keep everything documented. When you have a spare sort of half an hour, just sit down with a cup of coffee, put some relaxing music on, and make a list of everything that you think you need to get in hand, and sort of I did a spidergram off each topic of what I needed to do for each thing, and it is immense, but once you break it all down, it makes it far more manageable, and you can find the missing links to each of those sections as you're going through. It's a mammoth task, but you don't have to do everything in 5 minutes. It's going to take time, it's going to be difficult, you're going to be feeling horrible, but you will get through it. You will, definitely. Sorry to give my 2 pennies there.
No, it's really important.
Yeah.
You know, with all of these things, it's about lived experience.
Yeah.
You know, Becky has been through a divorce, and it was a very difficult time.
Yeah.
And
as it is for everyone, you know.
It is, yeah. Now, just to extend on that in terms of practical thoughts, generally speaking, if you have inherited a property or you've got property there, then it may well be that there's capital within that property that potentially could be accessed in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be worth having a look at local solicitors to see if there would be any kind of services. Some solicitors local to me, the solicitor service that I use, they have their own estate agency. So it might be that you're able to get an agreement in place where the fees for the estate agent are tied into the conveyancing fees, and you don't have to pay for the services until the whole deal is done. Something like that. So if you're in a position where you've got property, you can't afford to keep running that property, and you would like to get it on the market or talk about what can be done with it, then it may well be that there are going to be services that are going to be able to help you there. That's also important to bear in mind, again, slightly linking back to the care thing, because quite often there is a need for selling a property when somebody has gone into residential care. So it's worth bearing that in mind. If there is a property that needs to be put on the market to fund somebody's care, and particularly if that person, if you don't have if that person doesn't have any capital to do that, or you don't, then it might be that there's some kind of arrangement that can be agreed with a local solicitor around that. So yeah, worth bearing in mind.
Okay. Thank you for that. So we've got loads of lovely questions coming in, or loads of questions. I'm going to go to Yvonne, and we've got a bit of more background information as well. So Yvonne is going to be looking at applying for attendance allowance with regards to ongoing difficulties with being autistic, and she has talked a little on the telephone with someone at Autism West Midlands regarding difficulties since her husband passed away 8 years ago.
Okay.
She's been moved home 5 times and is obviously struggling with that.
Yeah, that's not good. Autism West Midlands are a good organisation. I have been in my other work, I've been involved with Autism West Midlands, and they can be really, really helpful, and they can give some good advice on benefits and things like that. So they should be able to advise with the best way of completing the attendance allowance form to get that sort of thing across. Attendance allowance is a bit of a tricky one, because if you're under 75 and your issues are less physical and more of a sort of neurological, mental health, psychological nature, then it can be quite difficult to get that across and get awarded the rate that you should be awarded, because it's sort of designed around people having mobility issues and things like that. So if hopefully they'll be able to provide you with advice and guidance on that. It does sound a bit awful to have to move house
5 times.
5 times. I've just recently supported a lady who was she's about 85, just with one house move, and oh my god, that's made her, really, really had an impact on her.
It's one of the most stressful things that you can do, isn't it? It's difficult, really difficult. I've got some really good news. Our wonderful Gareth Havers, who I think you'll recall had been waiting and waiting and waiting for his PIP review, has been awarded until August 2029.
Oh, good. An extended one. Yeah, that is good. We are noticing or seeing now there has been a bit of a change. I did a bit of an update on that in my last Universal Credit and News and PIP update, that there are long-term awards being given out a little bit more easily now, particularly at the review stage. So it is good news, and it's something that gives a little bit of not faith exactly, but is a bit more positive in a very difficult system. So good to hear. Glad you've been successful with that.
So we've got a bit more news from Tia. So this was regarding savings, but they're not savings. It's because they haven't been able to leave the house, and it's actually payments that have been mounting up. So I assume she is basically going over the threshold, but not on purpose, whilst claiming benefits and having to produce bank statements.
Okay.
So, any advice there?
So I'm a little unclear. I'm just leaning over anything else. So it's savings. They've been mounting up.
Yeah.
it's a bit tricky. If savings are going over the threshold, then that becomes what they call a notional income. If that then is taken off your benefits, essentially, that notional income. So if you have gone over those things, then essentially you should be informing them of that, which you may well have done. The difficulty is that if it is owing to somebody, you need to be able to demonstrate that there is that debt. So when you say someone, is it a person, is it an organisation, those kind of things, and you need to be able to demonstrate that and have a discussion with the DWP about how that's being paid back to them. Is it all to go in one lump sum? Is it something that you're paying on a monthly
The
basis?
money is owed to a carer.
To a carer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is that a professional carer?
I don't know yet.
No. So that's the question. Is that a professional carer? Have they, invoiced you for services in some way? Can you demonstrate that that needs to be paid to them? So you need to have official documentation and evidence that you're able to do that. If you don't have that, then you need to get something in writing, even if it's somebody who is supporting you personally.
No. Yeah, I think it's on supporting personally.
Yeah. So, and you need to demonstrate what that money is used for and why you owe it to them and so on. So the best thing is not to, if you need to pay somebody back, say somebody's lent you £300 for a month to help you with your rent or something like that, and they're also caring for you and doing other things, when that's arranged, or if that was arranged, you need to have something in writing from both parties to say that that loan was made and that you need to pay it back, and either that you've agreed to pay it back in one lump sum, or that you are going to pay it back over a course of months at a certain rate each month, and have that all in writing, and also show on your bank accounts where that money came in and where it went out. If it's in cash, that's a bit more of a difficult thing, because you need to evidence it, really.
So yes, Tia, you need to get him to give you an invoice. That's right.
Yeah. So it could be handwritten. It's better if it's typed, obviously. If he is a professional carer in some way, it's just with any goods or services, you need a receipt. You need to be able to show that. As far as the DWP is concerned, with absolutely anything, it's all about evidence. What you tell them really is immaterial. It's about the evidence where you can demonstrate what has been happening, and even then they may or may not approve that, but yeah, so those conversations need to happen. I would say, Tia, that you need to definitely sit down with a face-to-face advisor if you can, find one local to you in some way to discuss that sort of thing.
They can get evidence.
That's good. The other thing to think about is some local, not necessarily national, but some local debt organisations might be able to advise you on that. Some of the national ones are more, sort of focused around IVAs and things like that, or people that have got themselves into a lot of debt. But if you're just in a position where it's a little bit of income that you owe somebody, some of the local money or debt organisations, quite often they're linked to churches and things like that, so do have a little Google search on that sort of thing, and you might be able to find somebody who you're able to kind of go through that with.
We've got quite a few questions coming in, so I'd like to move on if that is okay.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Lovely Ed Shaw has said, is home care a lottery where a person with care needs could receive a care package in one authority area but denied it in another? So is it different from area to area?
Basically, yes.
Yes.
I mean, that's the short answer. It is a lottery. A part of it, as I said earlier, is about budgets and what local authorities have, but also it's about what the local authority or social services within the local authority have decided is the right kind of provision.
Mm-hmm.
Also the organisations that they link in with. So
step down wards in hospitals, all of these things.
Yeah, exactly. So that could be, if you've got step down wards, cottage hospitals, small things like that, then that can make a difference. Some areas don't have that at all, and
but also there are areas where it sort of that kind of care need isn't as prevalent as well. So in an area like, I think Leeds has the biggest, the highest amount of care needs in the country, as far as I'm aware, for the elderly. The provision is going to be different and have different funding from somewhere else where it's a predominantly sort of younger demographic with fewer care needs.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Plus, you get regional variations in terms of between the north and the south.
Yeah.
We often hear politicians talking about levelling up in the north and then doing absolutely nothing to do that. They never put their money where the mouth is. So places like Liverpool and Leeds and Newcastle, places like that, get a lot less per capita funding than somewhere like Kent, even though there's probably going to be a higher demand for it in those areas. So you get things like that happening for one, but it's also in terms of what's available in the NHS services has an impact on what's available in social services. Simple things as well about where you've got areas that are very rural, so that can make a big difference as well. So for example, even in Herefordshire and Worcestershire, where Worcestershire particularly, where we live, in Kidderminster, because it's on the border, or just sort of between Worcester and Birmingham, what you tend to end up having happen is the local authority will buy, or not buy, but have an arrangement with care providers who are actually based in Birmingham rather than care providers that are based in Worcester, because the ones in Birmingham are slightly cheaper. But that means the people that they've employed tend to travel from a much further distance when they come to provide care, so they're more often late. Or more likely to be late, or more likely to not turn up, or more likely to get stuck in traffic on the motorway, things like that. And that's because the amount of money that the local authority has for provisioning care services is reduced, so they'll go for an organisation like that rather than one in Worcester that might be more established and might cost a bit more money and be a bit more reliable. So something like that, where you've got these areas that can be a bit out in the sticks, will have a lot more difficulty because the nearest care agency that can send people over is in a city 20-30 miles away, whereas a person in the city will have 30 or 40 different care agencies within their region that can provide care in that way. So you get those kind of elements that affect care provision as well. Sorry, I've gone off on a ramble.
No, that's fine.
But that's why we're here.
That is why we're here. Are you ready for another question? So Rob McCallan, hello Rob, puts random question. What is the point of the saving scheme for people on benefits when if you use it, it affects your housing benefit, so it makes it sort of useless? You can't save much anyway, but it's obviously good to have a buffer if you can. But if it's sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul, I think is what he's saying. What's the point?
Could ask that question about a lot of decisions to do with benefits. Yeah, the savings scheme is sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit. Part of it is about the future. So for people, there's a certain amount that you can have in savings which won't be touched or won't won't start generating a notional income for you. And a part of the reason for that is that you should have some money to pay for your funeral. That's a cheerful thought, but that's one of the reasons why things like that, where there are these schemes where you can start getting some savings behind you and have something for a rainy day. So yeah, some of the schemes aren't brilliantly thought out, but it's generally speaking, the majority of people that are on universal credit and having to claim housing benefit and council tax support element of that are in a position where quite often they're more likely to be paying back at further advances or advances on their situation than they are actually putting savings into the bank. However, it does make it look good for the government if they have savings schemes set up as well.
So just before going back to another question regarding universal credit benefits, just a nice tip here, another one, thank you Joanne Wall, again, she's brilliant. She just says her local authority is brilliant with support, but she did have to ask for a disability nurse visit from the local authority adult services. So guys, do ask. Brilliant tip from Joe, who said, yeah, they're great, but don't be afraid to ask. You don't ask, sometimes you don't get. So
well, I'd say if you don't ask, you never get. And it is always, sadly, unfortunately, the case of the people that shout the loudest that get the best support. And the best access to services. But quite often as well, there are schemes that start up that we don't know about because we can't get the information out there. I mean, I work for an organisation at the moment that provides an essential, or arguably essential, mental health service, and it is commissioned by the NHS. Can we get the GPs to tell people about it? No, we can't, because the GPs are just far too busy and they don't know. And there's so many blocks to getting that information out. We go through the NHS and they say, yeah, we'll forward that information to everybody, and they never do. So we try and go through the front door, and you can't get past the bloody receptionist, as always, sort of thing. So we have this fully funded service that's out there for mental health support for people locally to us, and we can't get that information out there. But if you ask the question, whether that be your social worker or you get in touch with a local organisation that might be set up to support with your particular health conditions or disabilities or something like that, they'll be able to say, oh, well, actually, did you know about this scheme? And again, even within the local authority, there will be elements of things that you don't know that you can get. And again, within the NHS as well, that's all a lottery. So always ask the question, and ask everybody that you meet as well, because you might meet one GP who knows one thing,
someone who doesn't,
and then another one who knows something completely different. So always ask, always dig, search.
So we don't have a lot of time left, so I want to get back onto some questions, if that's okay. Thank you. So Kelly Baker is on universal credit, gets standard pay with a top up on top and the full rate of PIP. Will the new rules that have just come out affect her?
Which new rules?
Oh, I don't know.
A lot of new rules.
Sorry, Kelly.
A lot of new rules have come out over the past sort of 12 months, and there are some things that are said to be happening that aren't actually in place as yet. So it entirely depends on which rules you're referring to. So if you can specify, then I'll let you know and answer that question.
Lovely. Okay. Nothing as yet. Sorry about that, Kelly. Okay. Datron Thomas. I'm on ESA. Any update on when we have to move over to Universal Credit, please?
So that is happening very slowly over the next 4 years, 5 years. So where are we now? 2023. So that will be happening up until 2028. There was some confusion for me because there was it was a bit misleading in different ways. But the planned migration is happening up to 2028. So you don't have to do anything. They will get in touch with you when it is your time to move over. And as I've said before, you will have transitional protection applied to you, which will mean that when you move over, your rate will be the same as what you are on at the moment, but also you should keep the same classification. So whether you're in the if you're on old style ESA, it would be either the work related activity group or the support group. You will remain in the equivalent group when you move on to Universal Credit. So you won't have to be reassessed or anything like that. If you have been told that you will be reassessed at a certain time and you move over to Universal Credit, then that time that you are to be reassessed should remain the same. So if you've just signed up for, say you were on ESA and you were told in 5 years' time you need to be reviewed, and after 3 years you move on to Universal Credit, then 2 years later you'll have to do that review.
Okay, so Red Revolution. I'm sorry I've kept you waiting, but I've not kept you waiting as long as your review will take, from the sounds of it. So, thank you first of all for your lovely comments, and that's fabulous. And thank you to everyone who has shared their horror stories of the amount of time it has taken for the reviews to take, because it's taking a long time.
Yeah, I think the average is about 18 months at the moment.
Okay, average 18 months. However, hopefully you can see that lots of our viewers who often comment in our live feed, I'm totally brain dead, I'm sorry, have had some really great news, and I'm really pleased that Rick has had some really good news. I'm pretty sure it was Rick. Let me just scroll back. Rick Shaw. Their review took 12 months and had to go back to have assessment, but the decision was made a few weeks ago and they've awarded PIP till 2033. Hurrah!
2033.
Yes, we are
they got
so
the 10.
pleased for you.
You got the 10 years.
So pleased.
That is good. Yes, I did have a person leave a comment on a previous video where I was saying that, traditionally there haven't been lifetime awards on PIP, and they said yes there have, because I got a lifetime award. And in all my years of doing PIP forms and supporting people with PIP, that is the only person, and I have spoken to thousands, and I do mean thousands of people.
So it's a miracle.
So that's the only person that I've ever known that got a lifetime award. But the 10-year awards are really good, and hopefully with these new rules for PIP that have been introduced on the assessment process, we will be seeing more people with long-term health conditions being put onto the 10-year award. However, what I will always say is, unless you're on the highest rate, if for both things, unless you're on the absolute maximum rate, if your condition changes or worsens and you've got to do more things, then you should think about requesting a review if you fall into that category, because the part of the reason that was stated, which on the face of it is a good reason for people to be reviewed, is there were a lot of people on DLA, for example, who'd be on the very lowest rate, and they'd be on that forever and ever and ever, and they might have developed something, you know, quite serious in the meantime, which would cause them a lot of issues, you know, and lot of increase on their care needs, and they could have been on the higher rate for sort of 5 or 6 years, and they weren't. So that said, it is of course very stressful to go through the PIP review process. It's a little bit easier these days with the new forms and things like that, so if you are going to do that, always make sure you get support if you can. There we go, that's my little...
So, Debbie is on her 3rd review. It's been put off for another year. It should have been August 22, then August 23, now August 24. But it's causing a problem with her blue badge because the council will only issue that for 12 months. Any suggestions?
So if that has... that's a bit odd. So if that is a 12-month award for PIPs, for PIP, then that's probably why they're asking for you to review that after a year. But a blue badge can be issued with or without a disability benefit in place, so you don't have to have attendance allowance or PIP or disability living allowance to get a blue badge. You can be assessed on your merits as it is. So if you are able to go through the so when you apply for the blue badge, if you've got PIP and you've got mobility, then all you need to do is send in your cover letter that you get that tells you, your award letter, sorry, not your cover letter. All you need to do is basically photocopy that and send it in, and you'll get that awarded. But if you don't have that, then you can go through the entire assessment process, which isn't that onerous, to be honest, but the more difficult element of it is that you have to provide a lot of evidence. Now, I have done a video a few years ago now. The system hasn't really changed since I did that video, and it is literally me doing a screen share of me going through the blue badge process step by step. So have a dig around on my channel, you'll probably find it there. Worst comes to the worst, you'll have to do it that way, and if you're able to get that evidence, then do that and provide that to them. But what I would say before you even start doing that is go onto your local authority website and see if you can actually find the contact number for your blue badge assessment department. In my local authority it's called the blue badge team. In different local authorities it may be merged with different areas of social services or different areas of revenues and benefits, things like that. If you can actually speak to somebody on that team, it may well be that they will accept the award letter and extend that just on that fact. If they're not going to, they'll be able to tell you directly. I've always found the local blue badge teams, they tend to be really nice, helpful people. You know, I'm not saying everybody is always all the time. You might speak to someone and they're having a bad day, but they've usually got an email address that you can write to directly, and quite often they have a phone number as well. If you're not sure as well, it's always good to ask at your local library. They tend to have information about that. Quite a lot of libraries support people with applying for a blue badge anyway. But yeah, so you can apply just based on your own merits, you know, your own disabilities essentially. Hope that helps.
I've missed Kieran, so I'm going to see if I can scroll back up and see what his question was. Sorry Kieran, and hello. And hi Steve, Steve's just come in. Kieran's form had to go back last October, got a text in July, and then a new one in September to give the date. Pass the other two. Kieran's having a 3rd review. and doesn't understand why they have to come back to him because nothing's really changed.
Yeah, it depends when your last review was done. So anybody, a chap I supported very recently, his review had just come in just before the change of review system, and so he had to go through that whole process again, and it was a bit of a nightmare, and he's still dealing with it now, to be honest. But as I say, the rules have changed, so the review system now is different, and it may well be that previously, where you were given a 1 year or a 2 year or a 3 year review, you might find this time that when you go through it, you end up getting a 5 or even a 10 year date before your next review. It also depends on the health condition as well. There are certain health conditions that are classed as long-term health conditions under the new rules. So they will look at that and they will see this person is, going to have that health condition for at least, the rest of their lives. So, is there much point going through this process every single time? Now, that's not entirely because the DWP have suddenly become really altruistic, but it's more to do with the fact that they've got such a huge backlog that it's easier to actually extend those things. I don't think they really thought very carefully about how many reviews they would have to keep continuously doing once they'd moved everybody over onto the PIP system and DLA had been completely removed. They do keep blaming it on COVID and saying, there's so many more people since COVID, but it was something that we all knew, those of us who worked in disability rights and advocacy and so on, we all knew that after about 10 years it would have created this sort of ongoing nightmare of administrative problem for them, and that those waiting lists, even though that they brought them down when we'd got to about 2015, that they would eventually increase again, because you just can't keep reviewing people in that way. So there we go. So yes, everyone's having an 18-month wait pretty much.
Joy.
To get their review. The good thing is it continues while you're having that wait at the rate that you're on. So if you see me looking in this direction, it's because I've got the screen with all the comments behind me.
Just had a little bit of feedback about one of the mics, which we were literally talking about it just as we were starting.
Your mic or my mic?
I think it might be both, to be honest, because I actually think it might be my breathing that people can hear. Sorry. But yes, we are considering, when we get a little bit of extra money, we will be putting in the screens, because we were thinking exactly the same. And that was from Rob. And Rob, no, I know you're not trying to be negative. Please don't worry about that at all.
So we were talking about plosives on the mic.
Yes.
Peter Piper picked a pick.
You can't do it.
No, I can't. What was the other one you were saying? Irish
wristwatch.
Try saying Irish
wristwatch. It was one of my friends from work that sent it to me in an email, said to say this really fast, and yes,
can't even say it slow.
5 minutes of just being in absolute stitches.
So we do have popper stopper shields.
Popper stopper shields.
Yeah, popper stopper shields. Yeah, popper stoppers. Which, generally speaking, you put the thing in front of your mic like this, which is useful if, like me, you keep turning your head this way and that way across the mic. The idea is that you're supposed to, when recording, keep the microphone here and talk this way. But
I think people are watching me, Stu, not you.
Oh, good Lord. See,
no one wants to see that. They want to see you.
But yeah, so what I also need one of these Stream Deck things so that I can just push a button and switch cameras and things.
I've got a
like
serious question. We have to stop waffling. Final question. Final
question
from Rob. Can you end up owing Pip after the 16 months if they change your reward?
It might. I can't say you don't.
Okay, so it's to be confirmed.
It's to be.
Should we look
confirmed.
into that? And
it depends. So if that carries on past the end date of your award, you should get that up until that assessment, and you shouldn't have to pay it back. However, I'm not saying that you definitely won't have to pay it back, because anything could happen, as it's the DWP.
yes.
But essentially, that award should continue until they decide on the date that you are no longer eligible for that. You shouldn't have to pay it back. But so in the past, when there was only a delay of 1 or 2 months, then people quite often did have to pay it back. But my understanding is that if it's sort of 12 to 16 months, or even 6 months, people aren't having to do that. But like I say, it's the DWP, so we'll see.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stu. Thank you, everyone, for your wonderful comments, your wonderful questions. It's great to be back. Sorry we're not on top form just yet, but
No.
we will be. Thank you for all your support and for putting up with us and our waffle.
Yes, thank you, everybody. And apologies if I don't. A lot of people come along wanting definitive answers, like the question that was just asked, where I kind of go, well, no, but maybe. And unfortunately, there is always that issue with answering these questions. Is that shouldn't happen, but it might, or that should happen, but it might not, because it is a bit of a risky situation. But yes, anyway, thank you to everybody who has tuned in and asked questions, and we will be back soon. I'm not going to say when, definitely, because things are still a bit up in the air at the moment, and my brain is not 100%, not as it has been in the past. So we will do our best to get back on it as soon as possible. So yeah, keep your eye on. What I'll try and do is do more recorded videos and updates, and answer some of the questions, and in a more detailed way. Thank you.
Okay, take care, everyone. Thank you as always.
Thank you.
Bye
See
bye.
you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
How do I turn the microphones off? These two. 1 and 2.